What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Drafters TV. I'm Ben Hauver, and today I'm bringing you my DFS rankings for Week 3 in the NFL. Today we're going to be taking a look at my top 70 ranked players on Drafters. Keep in mind these rankings aren't based on a salary cap format of DFS as much as they are in the rankings that I use when I jump into these weekly snake drafts, and I've got to say, I'm absolutely loving these weekly drafts. So we're going to be taking a look at the Week 3 rankings, and at the end of the video, I've got some draft footage to show you so you can see the rankings in action. In Week 1, Drafters ran this $3.30 tournament with a 1,000-player field. That tournament ends this week. It's down to the final 8. I am one of those 8. First place prize is $817, which is a pretty insane ROI off of a $3 buy-in. So hopefully you guys will be witnessing the winning draft for this tournament at the end of the video. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're feeling especially generous. I appreciate it more than you know. And speaking of subscribing, if you'd like a chance to win a free ticket to a Drafters contest of your choice worth up to $5.50, whether that be a cash game or taking a shot at one of their tournaments, all you have to do is subscribe to this YouTube channel and leave a comment below with your thoughts and your Drafters username. Winner will be selected on next week's video. We have new content coming each and every single week of the NFL season. We do giveaways on each video, and this week's giveaway winner, no need for a randomizer. Unfortunately, there was only one commenter, and it was FF Bowler 300. Somehow, some way, people are just not commenting on these videos. Maybe the content is trash. If, the content is trash, just leave a comment and let me know. Include your Drafters username. It won't hurt my feelings, and maybe you'll get a free ticket out of the deal. Who knows? But what I do know is that FF Bowler 300 is the winner of yet another Drafters ticket, so shout out to him. Now let's get into these rankings. All right, guys, so these are the rankings that I have for Week 3. I'm not going to hit on every single player, but I will, highlight some of the interesting things as we go down the list of the top 70 DFS plays for Week 3. I think the top 5 running backs are pretty self-explanatory. Zeke and Kamara both in amazing spots. Sanders coming in, he missed Week 1. Now he had 83% of the, touches for running backs, if I'm not mistaken, 17% market share of team targets. Now he's going against a Cincinnati team that plays fast and got throttled by Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt only a week ago. Jonathan Taylor outtouched Nyheim Hines 28-1, just an absolute smash play against the crumbling Jets defense. Colts have a top 3, I think, implied team total on the slate. Top 5 for sure. I think it's top 5, actually. They might be 4th in terms of implied team total. And then Kenyon Drake, he is getting undervalued. I've done like maybe 5 or 6 drafts on Drafters today, and Drake consistently is falling into the 2nd or 3rd round. And this is a guy who is getting 20 touches per week through the first 2 weeks, has, some receiving equity, 2 targets per game, and is a home favorite running back on a team with a implied team total above 30 going against a pathetic Detroit Lions defense. So Kenyon Drake is getting overvalued. I would scoop him up wherever you can. DeAndre Hopkins, not much needs to be said. He is the clear-cut top wide receiver play on the board. Scrolling down the list here, Carson and Eckler, the next tier of guys. I think Carson is going to get overlooked this week, similar to how Aaron Jones did. Last week Aaron Jones smashed the slate. He was an underpriced, if you will, underpriced in drafts as well, type of guy with a home favorite and a massive team total. And that's what we see with Chris Carson as a home favorite in a total with 55.5 points. He has been getting receiving looks. He's 3rd on the team behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So absolutely love Chris Carson. Austin Eckler's in the nut spot going against Carolina. This is interesting here. I think that it should be a priority of everybody's to try and get one of Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. And the deeper the amount of people in your draft, the more of a priority it should be, because these 2 guys I think are clearly above the rest of the pool. Darren Waller deserves to be, mentioned. He had an incredible week last week, but that was also his career game, having 12 receptions on 16 targets. I think it's more of an expectation with Kelce and Andrews to finish atop the leaderboard every single week, and they're in a monster game in this Chiefs and Baltimore Monday night showdown, if you will. So I think that both of these guys should be a priority. It gives you an edge over the field. Maybe less of a priority in a, 4-man draft, but in a 6-man draft, some people are going to be looking to TJ Hawkinson, Tyler Higbee, Jared Cook I've seen go in those. So there is a significant edge in getting one of these two guys. I am very happy to take them in the top 10, either of them, because it just sets you up so well for the week. And running back, wide receiver, and quarterback are all arguably deeper positions. So definitely a priority of mine to fit in one of these two guys wherever I can. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has just a ton of scoring equity on that team. He's getting all the goal line work. Last week we saw him get unleashed in the backfield in terms of receiving, had 8 targets, 6 receptions, and I just want as many pieces to this Baltimore Chiefs game as we could possibly get. So yeah, definitely love Edwards-Helaire. James Conner is in a much better matchup. That Baltimore run defense is going to be significant. So I've gone back and forth with these guys, but I think Edwards-Helaire is more so a 3-down back, whereas James Conner is going to share some touches with Benny Snell and some maybe with Jalen Samuels. So the matchup's phenomenal, though, against Houston. So James Conner, I think, is another player that we can prioritize taking in the top 12. After that, when it comes to these quarterbacks, this is going to be, again, a question mark as far as the league size. So I think that there are 7 guys that we want access to in this week, guys that have, maybe 25-point floors in, any type of reasonable game script, and then, ceilings 30, 35, 40 even. And that's going to be Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, and Patrick Mahomes. I think there's a slight drop off to Cam Newton and Josh Allen after that, but both of those guys are targets as well. I would be fine reaching on these guys, and like tight end, the more people you're drafting with, the bigger the edge. Because, Wilson and Dak going to be an absolute shootout in that game. Kyler Murray, there are just so many reasons to like Kyler Murray this week. Huge team total. He is scoring like over 16, almost 17 fantasy points per week on the ground alone. What he's doing as a rusher, then you add in the fact that he's passing almost 40 times per game, just an incredible player. And then Mahomes and Lamar Jackson going head-to-head on Monday Night Football. That could be a game that goes over 60. So absolutely love getting exposure to either of them. And with Mahomes in particular, I guess you could say the same thing about Jackson, but his stacking options are going late. Marquise Brown is going late. If you end up getting Andrews early, I would love to get Lamar on that team. But with Mahomes, I just took Tyreek Hill in one of these drafts in like the 30th pick range. That's just absolutely insane. So being able to stack Mahomes with guys like that at affordable prices seems like a huge edge that we can get on drafters in week 3. This next group of 4 receivers is where I think things are difficult to decipher between them. Amari Cooper, I think, has the best projected target share of this group, although DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett going against this Cowboys secondary that's beat up and is just bleeding yardage to wide receivers. Really enticing, the whole let Russ cook thing. I think we're seeing that come to fruition, and with Lockett and Metcalf having such a consolidated share of the team targets, they're both high floor, high ceiling options in this massive totaled game. Like I will keep saying, 55.5 point total. That's just nuts, and I think it could even go over. So yeah, definitely love Metcalf and Lockett. Great to pair with Wilson. Amari Cooper, the clear-cut wide receiver 1. He's averaging over 10 targets per game. Love that. Tyreek Hill, it's a tough matchup. Baltimore stifles wide receivers, but we're talking about a player who could single-handedly win you one of these drafts. He could drop 40 on anybody. I think he's matchup proof to a certain extent. What he does on the field makes him just different. And the matchup isn't the best, and I think that's why I've got 2 guys like Cooper and Metcalf ahead of him and Lockett kind of in the same vein for me. But once you get to this range of like 20, 22, 23, and Tyreek Hill is still there aren't many players at this point that can single-handedly win you the week. Tyreek Hill is one of them, so I love scooping him up in this format. So looking at this next group of guys, I'm not super crazy about any of them, to be honest with you. Calvin Ridley, love him. I think he's the clear-cut Atlanta wide receiver 1 at this point, with Julio's body continuing to deteriorate. He's showing massive upside on a week-to-week basis, but it's not a great matchup, and I don't think he can sustain a 2-touchdown per week pace. So I don't know. It isn't my favorite week to get Ridley, and he's going much higher than 23 in these things. So I don't think I'll end up with him. Same thing with Derrick Henry. He's getting the workload. He's just not getting the touchdown. So that could definitely rebound, especially against a terrible team like Minnesota. AJ Brown most likely will be out again this week, which, they'll continue to lean on Henry, but I'm seeing him go consistently in the top 10 of drafters drafts. So I don't think that we can really go there this week. Aaron Jones, Stephon Diggs, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Golladay. I mean, some of these guys are interesting. Kenny Golladay, we'll see what he comes back to, if he'll be limited in any sort of way. He was limited in practice Wednesday and Thursday, but the Lions have essentially said he'll be back. Patrick Peterson, not that type of corner anymore that I'd have any concern with running a wide receiver out against, and Stafford's going to have to lean on Golladay to get that offense back on track. So Kenny Golladay I do like, and I'm seeing him fall quite a bit lower than this actually, so you might be able to wait and then scoop, in top 8 talent wide receiver late in the draft with Kenny. So definitely like that, especially with the Lions expected to be trailing. Looking at this next group, the guy that stands out to me is Marquise Brown. I've consistently ended up with him in any of the week 3 drafts that I've been doing. I think he's a phenomenal play this week. The Ravens have a 29.25 implied team total. And, I know that the Chiefs don't really allow too many points to wide receiver, but this game, I think, is going to defy expectations. In fact, it seems like it's being underhyped to a certain extent. I know that it's not on the quote-unquote main slate, the Sunday games, but, geez, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, in for one of those games. He can smash a slate by himself here, and he hasn't done it yet. People might be off of him. I mean, I've seen him go past pick 40, 45, 50, in that range. And I mean, I've got him here at 30. So, you don't have to take him here at 30 to get him. And if you can get a guy like Marquise Brown as your wide receiver 3 on an 8 roster team, then Jesus. With these 2 quarterbacks here, I've got them ranked ahead of a group of players that I'm not crazy about. Like, I like a lot of these guys for the week, but Allen and Newton, I think, are still going to give you an edge if you're in, say, a 10-team drafters league and, you need somebody who can compete with Mahomes and Jackson and Wilson and Dak and Kyler, and these guys can do it. I mean, Cam Newton is showing it on the regular basis with his rushing floor, and Josh Allen is, efficient as both a passer and a rusher this year, which is impressive. From that perspective, I know he went against the Jets and the Dolphins so far, but even still, the Rams are a tough matchup, but Allen's floor and ceiling are so high because of what he does that I'm all aboard once again. Devontae Adams might be the hardest player to rank. I've seen him go in the top 20 of a drafter's draft this week. I've seen him go undrafted in a drafter's draft. He missed Wednesday and Thursday practices. Now, I would recommend taking him, and that's why I've got him kind of slotted in the middle here because you can swap in these things. So if it gets announced later on that he's inactive, you can just drop him and swap with somebody else, but it really depends on the opportunity cost. I mean, if you have to reach to get there with Devontae, then I'm not too crazy about it because, the players that you'd be replacing him with are guys that are going undrafted in whatever drafters league you're doing. So, I mean, Adams, his ceiling is obviously extremely high, but after being injured in that week 2 game with the Lions and now highly questionable for Sunday Night Football, I don't know. It's just really tough. He might be the hardest player to rank of this whole group, to be completely honest with you. Looking at this group, I mean, a lot of receivers, a lot of these guys are kind of interchangeable. You can just sort of go with who you like, who fits maybe your stack. If you have like a Josh Allen to Diggs stack, maybe I would look to bring it back with Cooper. If I have Dak Prescott, but I wasn't able to get Amari Cooper, then CeeDee Lamb is a guy I would look to. These are like roster construction type questions in terms of which way you go. These 2 guys are running backs that should be going higher, and they are going to go higher than here. So if you're going by my rankings, or if you have similar rankings, you're likely not to get either of them. The thing with Dalvin Cook, even though it is a decent matchup against Tennessee, I mean, he's averaging like 15 touches per game. He's averaging like running back 2 usage, despite the huge contract, despite what he did last year. So I'm just not sure about Dalvin Cook. He could end up being, kind of like a slate breaker in terms of his value being here. I mean, he's been getting there in the box score, as you can see here, but I don't know. I'm just not too crazy about Dalvin Cook this week, even though that game has a decent total on it. I think it's like 48 right now. I think that goes under, to be honest. These are going to be 2 slow-paced, run-heavy teams, and I just that's a fade for me, to be completely honest. Josh Jacobs going against the Patriots. That's not an easy matchup, but the Raiders are force-feeding him work. He has looked good, although the main concern with him right now is that he missed Wednesday and Thursday practices. That's really not good for him. We'll have to see what's going on Friday. It's just a matter of if you're willing to take that risk. Again, same thing with Adams. Are you going to take a guy that has a decent chance to miss the game and then risk having to swap him out with, a bottom of the barrel running back at the end of the draft? Or are you going to just pray that you can get him and maybe some other people are off of him because of the injury, and then you get a massive value? I guess that's really a question that you have to answer. I mean, I don't mind being risk adverse in these things, but injury is not one of the ways I want to do that. I'll be risk adverse by taking guys with low floors and high ceilings in a hope that I can, jump the standings. And that's where I embrace my risk, not so much with injuries, because I think there are so many guys in this range that have comparable ceilings to Josh Jacobs that it's just not worth the risk. With this group, like I mentioned above, it's all going to be roster construction. Nick Chubb is going to go way higher than this, but I just don't like the matchup. I think the Browns are going to come down to earth heavily. That Cincinnati team is going to be a different story from what Baker and the Browns offense is looking at going against the Washington front seven. Not expecting good things from the Browns, and Nick Chubb, as incredible as he was, I mean, that Bengals team is just a complete joke on defense right now. So I don't necessarily love Chubb this week. At a certain point, if he's falling, I think you do take him because he does have, 3 touchdown upside just being the goal line back there. But with Kareem Hunt vulturing a significant amount of work, probably a fade for me. Same thing with Ingram. Like, Ingram to me is a cheap way to get exposure to the Baltimore Chiefs game that, I do want a lot of exposure to. He does have some decent touchdown upside in a game like that, but, he's splitting with Dobbins, he's splitting with Edwards, he's splitting carries with Lamar Jackson in a way. So it's just really tough. There's 4 guys getting carries in that Baltimore offense. So depending on where you get him, I like him, but I don't want to be overboard. Deontay Johnson's the other guy I'll highlight in this group. Juju Smith-Schuster missed practice again on Thursday, and Deontay practiced in full after missing Wednesday. So these guys are trending in opposite directions. If for some reason Juju Smith-Schuster were to not play in this game and Deontay was the clear-cut wide receiver 1, I mean, he might be the wide receiver 1 as it is. But I mean, if Juju's out, Deontay Johnson, I mean, you could bump him up 20 spots, to be honest with you. So he is currently one of the guys that I do want to take a risk on. I'm willing to draft him above some of these guys even, might consider moving him up the rankings for a few more drafts that I do this week. Just absolutely love Deontay Johnson. The Texans aren't going to be able to stop him, and the Steelers are making a concerted effort to force feed him the ball. So these are the other quarterbacks that I'm ranking. I think I put 10 guys on this list. If you're doing a 10-team draft, Matt Ryan, just about as safe as it gets. He's going to throw the ball a ton. They can't run the ball. They won't be able to run the ball against Chicago, and Calvin Ridley's an awesome stacking option for him. But I don't know. The Bears defense is going to be a lot more difficult for him, I think, than Seattle or Dallas was. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes. Stafford, game flow. They're going to be trailing. He's got Kenny Golladay back. They're going to have to do something to try and keep up with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. So I do like Stafford. Rodgers, I mean, if Adams is out, I'm not quite sure, but we did just see Derek Carr and the Raiders drop over 30 points on the Saints defense. So, Rodgers has been playing on fire. It's hard to think about going there with, Devontae so questionable. So this might change for me over the next couple of days as the injury situations become more clear. And Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, he's at home and he's going against the terrible Houston defense. And as terrible as they are, Deshaun Watson will be good enough, I think, to keep the pressure on for them. So I do like Roethlisberger. If I were going to add one guy to this tier that's not in there, it would be Carson Wentz. Like, we just saw what Baker did to them. And even without, guys like Rager or Alshon Jeffrey, I think Deshaun Jackson, Miles Sanders, Ertz, and Goddard are enough for Wentz to get it done against that Bengals team. So if Rodgers becomes sort of, even more questionable with a potential Devontae Adams being out scenario, then I think we would slot Wentz in right behind Roethlisberger, and that would be the substitution that I would make. Some other guys in this group, Darius Slayton is one that I'm huge about. Darius, a.k.a. Godius, the absolute Giants wide receiver 1, pure alpha. Sterling Shepard's out, Saquon Barkley's gone, so they're going to have to pass more, and there's going to be more consolidated targets in the Giants offense. The 49ers are without Dee Ford, Richard Sherman, Solomon Thomas, and Nick Bosa. So yeah, I think that the Giants are going to just absolutely obliterate them. Some people would want to play Golden Tate, but let me ask you the question. I mean, do you want to play the 32-year-old slot receiver who's been on 3 teams since 2018, or do you want to play the sophomore breakout who's 23 years old and is an absolute nightmare matchup going deep down the field? I think the answer is pretty obvious. Love Darius Slayton as an end-of-the-roster type guy in these drafts. Deshaun Jackson, You know, the Eagles just lost Rager. He got 9 targets last week, and he's been letting people down recently. You know, people have been kind of on him in the first 2 weeks. You know, this is a guy who can drop 30 points in any given week, and that's kind of what I mean about, you know, yeah, Deshaun Jackson's floor is very low, so it is embracing risk if you take him ahead of some guys like, you know, I don't know, other wide receivers on this list, Robert Woods, Devontae Parker, T.Y. Hilton. Like, yeah, those guys are all safer than Jackson. I don't know if you could argue that any of them have the same ceiling as Jackson in this spot against the Bengals. So, yeah, I'm definitely willing to take him ahead of those guys. And right here, you can kind of see why I think it's really important to go after Kelsey or Andrews. Because, yeah, I mean, some of these guys are in good spots, Gesicki especially. I mean, by the time this video comes out, we'll have already seen whether that pays off or not, because this video is going to drop Friday morning, and the game is kicking off in kicked off 5 minutes ago. I'm missing the beginning of it. So we'll see how that goes with Gesicki. But, I mean, playing in the slot at like 90%, he's an absolute matchup nightmare. So I like guys like Gesicki, Ingram for the same reason as Slayton, consolidated Giants target share after Barkley and Shepard went down. But it's not the same. And these are not game environments that we want to be over. I mean, the Giants, you know, team totals under 20. It's not close to what we're looking at and expecting from Andrews and Kelsey in the Chiefs and Baltimore offenses, respectively. So all of these guys, I mean, they're okay. You might luck box into it, but I guarantee that, you know, maybe 1 or 2 of these guys hits and 4 or 5 of them bust. So the safety and the floor ceiling combination of prioritizing the early tight ends in this format is absolutely necessary. Then I guess a final note here, I won't talk about Devontae Parker because that game will have already concluded. I do love Logan Thomas as a back end. You know, if you're in a 10-team draft and all the tight ends that you want get taken, Logan Thomas is a guy that I'd have some interest in. It's looking like Cleveland might be the new quote-unquote flow chart. They're getting decimated by tight ends to start the year off. Mark Andrews dropped 2 touchdowns on their head tops in week 1, and then CJ Uzomah and Drew Sample just ate them alive in week 2 for the Bengals. So yeah, Logan Thomas, definitely a guy I'm looking at. I mean, he's going completely underrated in any kind of format you look at. 3rd in the NFL for tight end targets. The other guy, last guy I'm going to talk about right here is T.Y. Hilton. I mean, he burned a lot of people last week. He was kind of a popular sort of like sneaky contrarian play in DFS, but he burned a lot of people, didn't do much. Now he goes against this Jets team that's crumbling in on itself. And I mean, there was a quote or like a story on Twitter today about how he got a call from his grandma. And she's like, you know, you don't look like the same guy out there on the field. I mean, his grandma is watching the tape and telling him that he needs to step it up. And that's motivation for him. He's going to do it for Gam Gam this week. So, I mean, if you want to talk about a narrative I buy into, T.Y. Hilton, absolutely. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. I'm going to drop some footage at the end of this of a draft I did for the $3.30 tournament on Drafters. Made it to the final 8 out of 1,000 people. And, you know, the winner wins like $817, I think. So I just did that draft 20 minutes ago. I'm going to drop the footage here at the end of the video so you guys can see the team that I ended up with in the process and how these rankings, you know, came to fruition in an actual draft. If you like this format, you know, it's new from the format that we did in the first 2 weeks, drop a comment below, let me know, and we'll keep it running back in week 4. Again, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again next Friday to talk about the week 4 NFL slate. All right, guys, here we go. Ran into a slight problem. Apparently, since you're auto-entered into this draft, it doesn't import your rankings, and I couldn't figure out how to do it ahead of time, so I have a separate tab open with my actual rankings for reference. I've done a couple of these drafts this morning, so I feel pretty good about like just knowing who I like where. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but doesn't matter. We're going to bank this thing, coming for the $800 first place prize off of a $3 buy-in. Feeling good about that. And this is going to be the winning team. Manifest that energy. 2nd overall pick. I'm guaranteed one of Kamara or Zeke. I prefer Zeke, and I get him. Easy pick. Love it. You know, running back, 3 downs, playing 90+% of snaps in a game with a 55.5 point total. It is a vibe. So I have to make a choice here. You know, and that is whether I take one of these 2 tight ends or if I go with Drake or Chris Carson, who I think are the clear 2 best options on the board. Now, I think what I'm going to do is take a tight end, and I'm going to assume that he takes one as well, and I'll be able to get that back. I do believe that he will use one of these picks on Mark Andrews, but I guess we'll see. I guess we will see the U. What are you going to do, my guy? You going to let me get one of Carson or Drake, preferably Drake, since I already have Zeke here, and running backs in the same game don't correlate that well within the same lineup. I'd prefer to get Drake here, and hopefully I will. Edwards-Helaire with the first pick, and with the second pick, what are we doing? One of the reasons I felt good about waiting on Drake here is because I did like 4 or 5 of these drafts this morning in different leagues, and Drake continually fell past the 20th pick. So getting him at 18 wouldn't be shocking. Although to me, I mean, I talked about it in my rankings video. I'm looking at him like a top 6 asset on the week. So just complete disparity between how I view Kenyon Drake this week and how the rest of the drafters community views him. And like clockwork, he falls to me. I mean, Russell Wilson is a great pick, but Kenyon Drake, I mean, this man, Kenyon Drake, is about to break out, averaging 20 touches per game. The Cardinals have an implied team total of like 30, over 30 right now, and the Lions just surrendered over 200 yards to Aaron Jones. Yeah, give me all the Kenyon Drake, please and thank you. David Montgomery, I mean, 30 picks later and Tyreek Hill being available, I don't know what to say. I feel like I have to take him there. I mean, Jesus, he could win the week on his own. And now I've got two Kansas City Chiefs players. Do I take Mahomes here, or do I take one of these Seahawks receivers? That is the question. I think what I have to do is take one of the Seahawks receivers, even though, I mean, Mahomes in this matchup with the Chiefs, it's really great, but I have a lot of exposure to Mahomes points already through Hill and Kelsey, and getting some exposure to this, Seahawks passing game. I've already got some exposure to the Cowboys side with Zeke. God, I don't know. I really do want to get Mahomes here, but I don't think I can. Is he going to take both Seahawks receivers and force me into taking Mahomes? That would be interesting, to say the least. No, he goes with Darren Waller. I am going to take Tyler Lockett here. That kind of hurts. I know Mahomes won't make it back to me, but hopefully I can get one of Prescott, Newton, Allen, or Mahomes. If one of those 4 makes it back to me, then I will essentially have won the league, in my opinion. No, I don't want to get too bold. Also going to be looking to get Marquise Hollywood Brown here as one of my final 2 options as a bring back to the secondary big game of the week. I guess there's really 3 big games. So all these guys, they all have quarterbacks, so I can wait now. I'll take Josh Allen with this 50th pick, and then in this spot, Diggs already went. I could try and get John Brown here. I could take Hollywood Brown, which I think I'm going to do. Take a shot on my boy Hollywood, who, I mean, the sky's the limit in this matchup. He may not be the safest pick. If I were playing this as a cash game, Keenan Allen, even Cooper Kupp, I'm pretty bullish on. God, that's tough. Cooper Kupp or Hollywood Brown. I don't quite know with that. Maybe somebody here will make the choice for me. I think I'll have to go with Hollywood just because of the game environment. I've already got 2 Chiefs wide receivers, and we're going to want to get some exposure to that on the comeback. So there we go. There's Marquise Brown. Now he'll take 2 guys. I'll take Josh Allen. And we're in a good spot right now, honestly. So Kupp goes. That's a good pick. I'm going to take Josh Allen. And then with this flex spot, probably going to be looking at, a receiver like consider Woods, although that's tough with Tre'Davious White. Gallup for sure. Deontay Johnson for sure. CeeDee Lamb for sure. John Brown and Deshaun Jackson. So I think that those are the last guys that I really want to consider. I mean, gotta shout out Godius Slayton, a.k.a. Young Slay. But the running backs, I don't think so. A.J. Brown could end up being a phenomenal player, but he has missed practice Wednesday and Thursday. Mark Ingram's interesting. But I think that, we're going to look at this group here. Right now, I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb here. I will consider going back later to swap for Deshaun Jackson, Darius Slayton, and maybe even Michael Gallup. Probably not Michael Gallup, actually, but these guys especially. I'll just go ahead and screenshot that. Yeah, so this is the roster. Ended up being a Josh Allen naked type team, but there are certain quarterbacks that's okay with. Obviously, I would have liked to have Steph Diggs or John Brown here. I just don't feel like John Brown is a straight good pick over CeeDee Lamb, even though it does offer the correlation. Super pleased with the two running backs, Zeke and Drake. That is a phenomenal 1-2 right there. And, ended up getting Tyreek Hill in the 4th round with a 31st overall pick. I mean, geez, just stone cold value. Tyler Lockett, I feel the same way in the 5th round. My God. I love this team. I saw a ton of value here, and you'll notice outside of Josh Allen here, all of these players are from the same 3 games. The 3 games that I think everybody's going to want to target. I've got the Dallas-Seattle exposure with Zeke, Lockett, and Lamb. I've got some Arizona exposure with Kenyon Drake, and then I've got exposure to the Chiefs Baltimore game in Tyreek Hill, Marquise Brown, Travis Kelce. So honestly, I feel really good about this team. I talked about this in last week's video in terms of like selecting players that Vegas is bullish on in terms of the game environment, and that is what I did here. Hopefully, guys, you can check out the video next week, and you will hear me talking about how I won that $800 prize. Thank you all for watching the video. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe to the channel. That's all greatly appreciated, and we'll be back next Friday, so I'll talk to you guys then.